This is Joanne Butcher. This is the Filmmaker's Life, and we do these interviews with filmmakers so that those of you out there who want to build a career in filmmaking of some kind have examples of how to do it. So today we're going to meet Robert Dumond, and I don't start out with a bio, Robert. I always just start out asking the first same question. So thank you for joining us. And my first question always is, when did you first know that you were a filmmaker? For some people, it's when they were kids. For some people, it's in college. For some people, it's when they were way old. You're muted, Robert.
There we go. Yeah, I think at 5 years old was the first time I was inspired to want to be an actor.
Ah,
I actually got my first opportunity to be on a TV series when I was, oh my God, how old was I? It was probably about 8, 9 years ago. I did a
but wait, let's go back to 5. So when you
yeah.
were 5 and you wanted to be an actor, how did that show up in your life? Did you go around acting with your friends or
Yeah, doing little shows in front of your parents. Me and my sister would, go back and forth, rehearsing scenes and that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, and just like certain films inspired that in me, where I seen them do it, and I went, "That's something I would love to do." You
Uh-huh.
know,
Do you
if I can get a
remember
laugh from
any films?
somebody, or yeah.
Do you remember any of the films?
I remember What's Eating Gilbert Grape
Ah,
profoundly touched me, and the performances in that, Leonardo DiCaprio, um, knowing who he was in real life compared to the character he portrayed,
right.
that deeply made me feel like, this is something that I could potentially do.
Yeah. Did we know who Leonardo DiCaprio was going to be when we saw What's Eating Gilbert Grape? I don't think we did. I think it was very early
No,
on. Yeah. But you weren't 5 when that came out, were you?
no, 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 no,
No.
no. That was just one of the films that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cemented that in me.
Because that film is a bit too grown up, I think, for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's an amazing, amazing film. I don't know if you've seen yet Killers of the Flower Moon.
I haven't. No, is it good?
It's fantastic, but Leonardo DiCaprio, when you just said, to know who he really is, and then to see him play this role, oof, something
Yeah.
else, something else. He makes himself ugly,
Okay.
which, you know,
Yeah.
that's a job. Um, so you said it was about 8 or 9 years ago that you got your first, was it a role? Was it an acting role?
Yeah, I was actually a private investigator in real life at the time, and I got hired by a ghost hunting TV
You were a
show
private investigator in real life?
for over 20 years. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm a big thriller fan, so
And I
anything
think
about crime, I'm in.
private investigating is a lot like acting, really. I did undercover work.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I was never who I really am. I was always a character I was portraying to
Uh,
convince somebody that, I'm that other person. You know what I mean? So it is kind of like acting, and the repercussions for not giving a good performance could be potentially very bad, right?
wow. How did you ever become a private investigator? That is amazing.
I think I kind of just fell into it. I started off in the security field, and I had a knack for you know, figuring out stuff, and
Do you have a military background?
I don't.
Oh,
I come from a
oh,
very military family, though.
okay, because I see a lot of military in your films.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you come from a military family. I'm always like trying to piece together people from military family, security background, private investigator. Now it's starting to make sense. But 20 years as a private investigator. Have you ever thought about making a movie or anything about your experiences with that?
Not really. A lot of it's confidential. You can't talk about it. Like there were certain jobs I did that I can talk about, and then there's certain parts that like I'll never be able to speak about it.
Now I even more want to know the stories.
Right. But yeah, so like they hired me on this ghost hunting show because they wanted to add some legitimacy to the the investigating on the show. And they figured that if they had like a real life private investigator, that it would add some credibility and I'd be skeptical. Despite like, I've had a couple near death experiences. I've had some paranormal experiences in my life and stuff like that. But I am still a debunk it first kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm skeptical by nature. So I investigate it and come to my conclusions based on the evidence.
So you were sort of playing a role, but it was a role that you had already played. That maybe.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that was my first big break.
And
Um,
you did that show, because I think I've always wanted to really be on a paranormal show. When you did that paranormal show, did you have any paranormal experiences?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah. I actually had an experience on that show. Well, it didn't happen on the show. It happened after we ended the episode that
Yeah.
made me quit paranormal investigating altogether.
No.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, can you tell us that story?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So so it's kind of a bit of a long story, but we did a house that was the owners had said that this is a haunted house. We're having all kinds of paranormal activity. The backstory to the house that it was a priest that had been you know molesting children and stuff like that. And when the cops were coming to get him, he hung himself on the property. So we went in there and I built this device called the Devil's Toy Box, which is inverted mirrors. So it's mirrors all the way around. It's a box, right? All the mirrors face each other. All four sides, the top, the bottom, face each other. The idea is that spirit can enter the box, but it won't cross its own reflection. So once it's in there, it's trapped in there, and then you can get rid of the box. Right. So we did the investigation like we did every other investigation. We had a couple little paranormal, hints that something was going on. We had a psychic medium with us on the property. They had all kinds of experiences as well. Never thought too much of it. It was just, I'm not really afraid of that kind of stuff. So I just took it as okay. Yeah, there's like some evidence that there's something going on here. We invited it into the box. Episode ends. I'm driving home. The entire way home, I felt dread inside. Like I was going to get in a car accident. Something really bad was going to happen. Still didn't think too much of it. I just went, well, you're amped up from being in this house and the backstory and the whole everything. So I take this box. I'm supposed to get rid of it. I never did. I brought it back to my house, set it on my kitchen table. I have these little suction cup microphones that we'd use investigating. We could suction cup it to your window, hear everything that's going on inside the house and stuff. So I started doing experiments. I'm going to suction cup it to the box, and I want to hear is anything going on inside of it. And yeah, there was all kinds of stuff going on inside of it. So I got recordings of what I can only describe as like screams from hell coming from inside this little box I built. Yeah. So through the jigs and reels of it, I spent time investigating it. I grew attached to the box and I didn't want to get rid of it. Then it started affecting my family, my wife, my child. My child was 4 at the time, didn't know I did ghost hunting, didn't know
Right,
anything about
right.
ghosts, started describing shadowy people walking through walls, and they would go through like, her room, then it would go through our furnace room, it would go through the kitchen, and we're like, yeah, and where did it go next? She goes to the table and it went in the box and then disappeared. Stuff like that, right? So yeah, I eventually grew really attached with the box. I had it for probably close to a year. I wouldn't get rid of it. And when I was going to get rid of it, I didn't know how do you get rid of something like
Right.
that?
How do you, yeah.
I don't just smash a box because then it's released and stuff. So I talked to a bunch of psychics from around the world, consulted with paranormal experts, like how do I deal with this situation? And one lady gave me some really good advice. She said, well, you're in Newfoundland and you're surrounded by ocean. She's like, what's best for you to do is find somewhere, pitch it into the ocean. The box was sealed with wax. So all the mirrors, it was wax that actually held everything together. She said over time, as the wax lets go, the spirit will come out, but the salt in the water will actually cleanse the spirit. Right. And she said that's
Reasonable.
about,
Sounds reasonable. Yep.
and that's what I thought. I thought that sounds reasonable. It'll be, it won't be trapped there for eternity. Right. Because I wouldn't want that either, even though it was
Some
that kind
kind
of spirit.
yeah.
I wouldn't want to be responsible for trapping it forever. I just wanted to help it cross over to the other side, and whatever happens then is out of my control. So yeah, that's eventually what I did, and I ended up going through like psychological attacks. I ended up where it deeply affected me. It affected my family and stuff like that. And at that point, my family was begging me like, "Hey, listen, you got to stop doing this.
Right.
Don't just walk away from it." And I haven't done another investigation since.
Goodness, what a story. And I guess if I were to say to you, Robert, let's make this into a movie, you would say no.
No, I don't really mess with that stuff anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I know there's definitely something to it.
Yeah.
I'm written about in a book called Talking with the Dead in Newfoundland. They call me a conduit, because when I'm around, there's always some kind of paranormal activity. I can set a voice recorder down and get EVPs pretty much at will,
Wow.
and intelligent responses to questions that I'm asking and stuff like that. I know I have like some kind of gift for it, but it just invites all kinds of negativity and evil and stuff into your life, and it's really not worth it for me.
No, we don't need that. And we have enough going on without inviting it in. But
Right,
a fascinating story. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday about horror films and how a lot of people think that horror films equal slasher films.
right.
But there are many, 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 many kinds of horror films. And I would not describe myself as a horror fan on any level, except that when it comes to anything about everything you just spoke about, demons, devils, religious stuff,
Yeah,
I, I love it. I'm in because, and I've never had an experience myself, but it all seems very real to me. There's a show on Netflix, and I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it's set in about the 1950s. It's a movie, and these three women go to investigate some kind of, paranormal thing. And they, and they're like chain smoking, and they're really funny.
yeah,
And but they usually go with a priest, but the priest has ended up in the hospital from some, you know, thing that they just did. So the
yeah,
three women are on their own, and they go and they deal with this entity, and they think it's all bullshit. And then finally it turns out it's for real, And then right at the end of the movie, it changes from being the three women in the 50s to video of the three women today who are all in their 80s. And they were real, and the story was real.
wow.
And I was just blown away. I wish I could remember the name of it because it was so good. But yeah, I'm
I think
very
it'd be very hard to actually like do a movie about what I experienced. It was so out of the realm of what I could even comprehend. Stuff like my guy that I used to go ghost hunting with, my partner at the time, he would he would hear me double talking. So I'm talking, but two voices are coming out and they're having different conversations. Like I'm me, but something else is talking through me at the same time I'm talking. Stuff like that was going on. It was just really, really bizarre.
yeah.
And enough that it scared the hell out of me. And I'm like, okay, I gotta stop.
Wow. So now that you've decided you're not going to star in any more paranormal shows.
Yeah. And funny enough, just recently I got asked to do one, and I said, listen, I'll help consult, I'll help produce, I'll help do research because I'm really good with research and stuff like that. I'm like, so I'll dig up your backstories, I'll do all that kind of stuff, but there's absolutely no way I will be on site investigating, because I've, once bitten, twice shy kind of deal. And they're particularly interested in me. I have EVPs, hundreds of them, where they mention me by name. It's like they know who I am. That, like, hi Robert, da 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 da. It's phenomenal. I got actual pictures where I've actually like captured spirits on camera, that would blow your mind. Actually, after this interview, I'll send you a picture. I'll
Oh,
blow your
great.
mind.
I would
Yeah.
love that. Thank you. Thank you. So after your paranormal stint, what did you do next? Did you continue acting or did you find other?
Yeah. Starting off, I was all about acting. Um, I got an opportunity to do a project about pirates. I don't know why, but
Oh,
I got an opportunity to do that. So I started in a movie about pirates and stuff like that. Um, the guy who was running the project was not a good guy. We ended up having a premiere. He ended up taking all the money and disappearing out of town. That kind of, I've had a lot of those situations in my career as well, where you're dealing with dishonest people that are just, there's a lot of snakes in the grass as well. So that was one of those lessons learned. I was still really proud of what I did, but we had to eventually put out a statement that, hey, we're not with this guy, and we're stepping away from everything. We want nothing to do with him because he's shady, and so that was one of those. It hurts, and it makes you reconsider whether or not you want to continue.
yeah.
Um,
I,
but
I, I often share, I think I even wrote it in my book. These days I now remember that I wrote a book. It came out on January 1st. For the first
yeah,
couple of weeks, I didn't remember. But the first film that first feature film I was involved with was stolen from me by my film teacher.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a
And
lot of that happens, and
a lot.
it's an unfortunate part of the business, but then eventually you find your people. You know what I mean? You find people that you work with that are honest, that,
Well,
truly believe in the craft, and
if you keep going and don't give
if you
up,
keep
like
going.
you considered, right? You considered
I
like
did, yeah.
this anymore. And I don't know what I thought. I don't remember really, but it definitely had a terrible impact. And I always say, I had a couple of choices. I could have become very bitter, or I work with my clients now and make sure it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one good thing you can do in the business is that as you learn and you grow and you learn all these lessons, you pass them on to other people so that they don't get caught in the same traps you did. Because there's little red flags and warning signs to these type
Yes,
of people. And once you learn those, you can avoid those people. You know what I mean? And the
absolutely.
business is really full of them.
Yeah. And
And it's really a small community, the filmmaker
yeah.
community. You know what I mean? It seems like, oh man, everybody's an actor, director, producer, but really it's a small community. And when you burn somebody, it goes throughout the community really fast. Everybody knows. And that's one good thing about the business is that, once you find your loyal, trustworthy people and stuff like that, when they're telling you somebody's bad news, they're bad news, and you can avoid them. Um,
and let people know. So
and that's the thing, is pass on what you know to other people,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think that when you were just saying about the red flags, it happened again to me recently where I'll be saying to a client, that's a red flag, that's a red flag. And they're like, no, no, it's fine. No. And I'm like, that's a red flag. And so recently this one client of mine, she showed up on a call the other day and she said, well, I fired him you can tell me now, you told me so. And I said, well, I'm not a I told you so kind of person. But I'm just glad,
Yeah.
and, uh, not glad that I was right, but glad that,
They didn't get worse, burned worse than they did.
yeah, that she finally saw it. And,
Yeah.
he really misbehaved. And that was never one of the red flags. It wasn't that he was rude and nasty, which was how he ended up getting fired.
Yeah.
But the red flags, they're usually things to me, they're usually things to do with somebody behaving in a way that is putting themselves on a pedestal. That's one.
Yep.
Putting the other person down. That's one. Yeah, those are the kind of things that I see
And you
early.
see a lot of I don't want to say scam production, but like productions that are kind of, dishonest and stuff like that. They want you to pay to be in their movie.
Oh,
They want you, you know what I mean? Like there's little things like that that you see and you go, no, no. And I've seen it with like some of my friends, like some of my closest friends in the industry. They're attached to a project with 100 other people that are all equally, valuable assets to the project. But then the project is just a sham, and it's just to make whoever's project that is put them on the pedestal that they're doing this huge movie with all these names attached and stuff like that. And everybody in the business knows that's never going ahead.
right.
It is simply just
Yeah. Most filmmakers are in fantasy, is how I see it.
yeah,
Because actually make a film is very hard.
it is.
Raise the money to make a film is very hard.
Yep.
So most filmmakers are actually just talking about making films, and so it's a much more rare thing to have a filmmaker who's actually making a movie and actually raising money and actually getting the movie made.
Yep.
What did you do next?
After that, I did, let me see. Oh, I don't know. I've done a bunch of projects. I did a really, really low budget project, not because I thought it would make me rich and famous and give me notoriety or anything like that. But I worked with a guy who owns a music studio, and he has a bunch of kids in his studio that were all, into music and stuff like that. And he had the idea of making a movie simply to get them to see the film side of the business and marrying their skills as musicians into the film.
Oh no.
It was a $0 budget movie. I think we made the entire thing. I think we spent like $250. But I acted in that one simply to give these kids an opportunity to act. So it was kind of
How
like a
old
labor.
were they? How old
Uh,
were they? How old were they?
10 and under, I think. They're fairly young. Um,
How
so yeah, there
fun.
was only like three of us in the movie that were older, and we're kind of like the main characters of it. But the movie's called Legends of Broken Rock. I'm not overly proud of my acting in it or anything like that. It's one of those films that you do and you look back and you go, "Ooh, I wish I could have done this better." But you know what I mean? But
I never blame actors. I only blame directors. So you don't
yeah,
have to worry.
so so yeah, we did that film, and we didn't get a lot of success from it. We did a little premiere and stuff like that, and we filled the theater and stuff like that. But seeing the look on every one of those kids' faces when their names coming up in the credits and they actually get to see the film for the first time and stuff, that's what did it for me.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. And it
so it
sounds
was
like you had a role in producing that film.
yeah, well, I did some editing. I ran the camera a few times. Well, the guy who was, the cameraman, he was the guy who put everything together. So I did have to run camera a couple times and stuff, and it was a learning experience. It was my film school. You know
Right.
what I mean? We made tons of mistakes, realized the value of how good audio is to a production,
Oh,
all that kind of stuff, right?
yes, yes.
Um,
Was it a feature film or a short?
no, it was a full length movie.
Wow.
So
That is such a great story, because I always say that the first film, it really is film school. The
yeah,
first feature really is film school. I don't think shorts are film school, but
And I get my hands into every aspect of it, from editing to green screen. Like, a lot of it was done on a green screen. We filmed everything in about a 10 by 20 room.
uh-huh.
The entire film was done in there. So it was an
There,
excellent learning experience for me.
yeah, there are things you just have to learn. So
Yeah.
you said, learning how important audio is. It's just something you have to learn, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
uh, and you'd already learned the thing about not working with shady people. So, that lesson
And
in your
he had great intentions, and he had a great story. Like, the story itself was fantastic.
uh-huh.
A bunch of original songs in there. They made me sing. I'm not a singer. They made me sing. I'm not real proud of that, but I did it. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of this business is coming out of your shell, doing stuff that, one, you're underprepared to do. I realized very quickly that not everybody has the answers, and a lot of people are just learning as they go. You know what I mean? And yeah, so, like, in a way, that film kind of helped shape everything that came after.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
What way? How did it shape everything that came after? It sounds to me as though you got bitten by the producing bug, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It did, and I wanted more control over everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as a producer, I'm not really a perfectionist, but I am kind of like I really strive to have a good product. And watching that film back, I'm like, well, we could have done this better. We could have done that better. And that's another teaching thing. And I thought a lot of that stuff was out of my control. You know what I mean? Like, so if if I had more control over the actual production, and if we would have spent more time planning it out, and if we would have, spent time getting a budget for it, imagine how good it could have been. And you know what I mean? And then, yeah, it kind of, and after that one, I did act a couple more times. Like, even recently, I just did a short film called The Same. But I don't really see myself so much as an actor. I really feel that I'm better suited for the production side of it, whether it's production manager, producer.
Oh,
Um,
this is a perfect segue into a question that I wanted to ask if you do a little explanation for people. So you have on various films, you have the title production manager, producer, associate producer. Maybe there was some more. What is the difference between all those roles? I think people often get really confused about all those titles.
yeah.
What's the difference?
Okay, so you start with the executive producer. They're usually the money behind the project. Um, you got your producer. You're the guy who's looking after everything. Um, you're the one going after the funding, finding executive producers.
Yes,
Um,
finding executive. That's so great that the first thing you said about being a producer is the one that goes after the funding, because I think a lot of filmmakers miss that.
yeah.
Producer is the one who finds the money, and the
and,
executive producer may be the one putting in the money, but the executive producer is not the one who's on set or who's hiring or who's
right.
spending that money. That's the producer. The producer is like the manager. If you think about a bank, the producer is
Exactly.
the right.
Yeah. He's not the owner. You know what I mean? The producer's the guy overseeing every department head, making, you know, everything, scheduling, friggin', like
Making
you're,
sure the food is there.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
The number
You're
one job.
hiring the craft services. You're hiring all the different department heads that are doing the makeup, the lighting, you're overseeing every aspect of the production. Associate producers are usually like, they want to be a producer. They may have, done other jobs in the industry to get to associate producer sometimes. Sometimes they're just assigned associate producer for no reason at all. Um,
I think there's a movie, a comedy about filmmaking where they make jokes about give them an associate producer credit. Give them an
exactly.
associate producer.
Right.
Uh,
But yeah, most associate producers, they've tried to work their way up the ladder, and they're still a producer. They're doing some of the stuff we're doing, but they're working underneath a producer.
Yeah, I got an associate producer title on a TV series I was involved in called Addicted. And I had two main jobs on the show. One was casting, which when you're looking for alcoholics and drug addicts on the verge of death is a very interesting job. And
Yep.
then my other job to find the treatment centers where the addict would go after the intervention, and they would go through a treatment recovery process there. So I had those two jobs. And so my title was associate producer, whereas the person I was under was actually the showrunner.
Right.
So in television, I guess showrunner is what we in film we would call a producer. But so the various associate producers had specific jobs. That was how that was seen. But yeah, thank you for answering that question, because I think a lot of filmmakers are always like, what are all these jobs?
And yeah, like production assistants. There's so many different aspects to it, and like people watch a movie and they go, I know this actor. You know what I mean? Nobody ever really cares about who's the executive producer, who's the producer. Well, some people, if you're like, a top name producer, maybe, but a lot of those
Maybe.
people aren't doing it for the credit either. They're doing it so that everybody else, like I got this motto in the business. It's called "Together We All Rise." Right? That's been my theme throughout everything I do. Is like, as a team, together we all rise.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And yeah, I think people that do produce projects and movies and stuff like that, you have to have that mentality that we are a team. Every single piece is important, from the hair and makeup person to craft services person to, like, it literally takes a team, an army of people to actually accomplish something worthwhile. And
Absolutely.
and that's
Absolutely.
why you find a lot of filmmakers, they'll end up working with the same people over and over and over and over again. And you're like, why is this person in every one of their movies? Why is, it's always this producer working with this producer and this, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I really think that once you find good people, you do, you hold on to them, and you carry them because you can trust them, and you know what they're going to bring to the table. And there's a lot of people in this business that do particular jobs in the business, but never actually do anything. They're just there for the credit. You know what I mean? And we run across that a lot. You'll have 30 producers on a project, and you got 2 of them actually doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody else is getting credit for it, right?
Absolutely. Well, it's funny that I wanted to ask you about the military films. There was one link that you sent me. I'm not sure if it's called Obscura or Oscura.
Yeah, that's kind of it's kind of a horror movie. It's like aliens, predator type movie versus the army.
Right. So
Yeah,
the reason I was switching in my mind was because I often think, even though I've never been in the military, I often think that filmmaking is probably closest to being in the military. So in filmmaking, you learn very fast who you can rely on and who you cannot rely on. And the people
100%.
you cannot rely on have to go. That's my thinking. The people you cannot rely on have to go. The smaller your budget, the more quickly they have to go.
Yeah,
I have a feeling it's the same in the military. The people that can't be relied on have to get weeded out or promoted, I guess.
yeah,
Promoted into management or something like that. But
yeah.
anyway, I always think about that. And then you've been involved in all these different films. And the first one that I looked at was this one. Is it called Obscura? Am I saying it right?
Obscura.
Obscura.
Yep.
And I was so impressed with the uniforms and the weapon. Not that I would know the first thing about a gun, you know what I mean? But the
Yep.
weapon, that seems like a very complex level of things to deal with, is all that stuff,
Yep.
and I also see that it was a very low budget and, things like that. But I just thought it was great the way that the military was being portrayed. And I realized, oh, I like those films, action films with the military, there are the famous ones.
Yep.
Three Kings pops to mind, Hurt Locker, you know, and they have all kinds of budget to do that. But you were doing this with, I think, a very small budget. So what was your role on that film?
Definitely. Yeah. So Obscura, I was an associate producer. So I worked with Rocket Pig Entertainment, which was Jerry Giangelo. That's actually the last film I ever did with Rocket Pig. And after that film, I moved on and I linked up with Diana Carter, who's a phenomenal person in the business. Anybody who has not heard of Diana Carter, go look her up. She is a remarkable person.
Is she a producer?
She is in everything. She's the CEO of Panther Trail Films. She's CEO of Rika and Wybots PR management. She's a talent manager, casting director.
Oh, I
She
would love to meet her.
You absolutely should. She is
Diane, what was her last name?
Diana Carter.
Diana Carter. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Her kids, I'll tell you about her kids after. They're equally as impressive.
Oh, wow.
They're two of the youngest CEOs in all of Hollywood.
Wow.
So they got their own production company called Military Kids for Kids, and I'm going to be a producer for all their projects. They got 5 movies coming out that we're doing this year with her children. Phenomenal.
How old are her kids?
I think like 14 and
Oh,
maybe 12, 13. Yeah, they're young, but they've been there with their mom hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meetings. Like they've learned the business inside and out from my personal muse. Like Diane has taught me more about the film industry than anybody in my entire career.
wow.
And she's one of the people that says, we're going to make this movie, and we actually make the movie.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Um,
And I know exactly what you mean by that. And that's
yeah,
what I'm saying. The majority of filmmakers, and look, filmmakers are my favorite people. So I'm not saying this to be mean. It's just a fact, is that most filmmakers, when they're talking about films, it's fantasy. It's never going to
right.
happen, you know?
It's a
And
pipe
so,
dream.
yeah.
Yeah. And I've left projects because I realized that it's nothing more than a pipe dream. It's never going to be anything more than a pipe dream. And eventually I have to walk away because I can't be associated with the dream anymore. I have to actually go and make a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think
I have.
my work as a coach with filmmakers is to, turn all of that pipe dream into a reality. And that reality may be smaller, may be less money, it may be harder, it may be all those things
Yeah,
more than the fantasy, but we've got to get into reality, we've got to get into reality.
exactly.
And
And
move.
one thing about Diana too is a lot of her projects, they have meaning to them. So we're doing a movie called PTSD, A Soldier's Revenge. It's all about post-traumatic stress and the military. Let me tell you, that movie is going to touch people's hearts and souls. That's the kind of projects I like to do. I like to do something that has, like, I love doing Obscura, but my passion is doing something that means something, that 50 years from now somebody will watch it and go, oh my God, that touches my soul.
Yeah, the thing is, I think that although Obscura is not my kind of movie, I mean, yeah, you said aliens, whatever.
Yeah,
But still, I loved the way that it showed the military. It did a great job, I thought, of doing that. And there was
yeah.
a lot of focus on a woman in the military, which you don't see so often, and those kind
You're
of
going to
things.
love PTSD, trust me.
Yeah. So, but I can also see that you could go closer to reality and closer to drama. One of the most significant film viewing experiences of my life was when I first moved to Miami, and I was in the English department, but I started taking film classes in the film school, and so they have a cinema there. I still go there,
Yeah,
and one of the first, when I first got there, I just went to everything because I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't have a life. I didn't know anybody. And they were showing this movie. I don't think I'm going to remember the name of it, but it was a movie about a veteran with PTSD who came home to his family and was starting to have hallucinatory experiences and that eventually got into violence. And it starred one of the white guy from Miami Vice.
Don
Anybody
Johnson?
remember? Don
Don
Johnson.
Johnson? Yep.
Yeah. So Don Johnson was the star. And actually, I just reconnected with the director, George. Anyway, he went off to have a career in Hollywood. And so anyway, I go to the theater, and it was kind of full. I don't know if it should be full or empty or whatever. It was a new film. I didn't know who Don Johnson was, or maybe I did. Maybe I did know Miami Vice. And then the lights came up, and they had a Q&A, and I was surrounded by soldiers, or I mean vets.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
Oh, wow. And people were so moved by that film. I'm telling you, one of the most powerful cinema going experiences of my life. And
Yep.
it's probably not a famous film or anything like that, you know.
But that's the thing is, if a movie touches your soul, you know what I mean, and affects you like that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, that to me says you're doing good work.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And projects like PTSD, it just means so much to me. I personally have post-traumatic stress. So I get the experience that they're portraying in it. We're working side by side with veterans. We have veterans in our project.
What is the movie about? Is it a
It's all
drama?
about,
Or
yeah,
is it
it's a drama. It's
it's a drama?
drama. Yeah. And yeah, it's about a female that comes back from Afghanistan with post-traumatic stress, and her trying to cope with it and deal with it. And it kind of really shows what it's like.
Yeah, that sounds very, very good. That sounds very valuable. I
And
just
that's my second post-traumatic stress movie. I actually worked on American Warfighter as well, and that was pretty good at portraying what post-traumatic stress is like as well. But this movie is a whole other level into the psychology of it.
and
And
yeah, Warfighter, I saw some of that as well. And so was that another Diana Carter film? Is it
no, that was Jerry Giangelo from Rocket Pig.
from Rocket?
Well, he was
So
Fireborn Studios at that point. That's kind of my first start with him, was working on that, doing marketing. And
so Diana Carter, does she make films that are all about the military? Because
not necessarily just about, but we do a lot. She's a veteran herself.
I see.
And yeah, so like a lot of her projects do have military themes to them, but we go outside that. We're doing one in Los Angeles, filming. We started filming, I think it's the 11th of February. So like I'm in Canada.
Oh, okay.
I head up there, and we go. I'm producing that one. I'm second cameraman on that one. Script consultant. I'm doing a bunch of different little things for it. But we're a good team like that too, because like we don't get hung up on a title. What
Right.
needs to be done, let's do it.
Yeah.
You
Everybody
know what I mean?
does, what they're good at. That's really great. I just always like to open it up for questions. If
Yep.
anybody has a question, please raise your hand. I'm keeping an eye. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. So what do you have? Well, you
Oh,
have
you froze.
Oh, I froze. Okay. Hello. Am I back? Am I back? Hello. Hello. I'm seeing Robert frozen. Emily, what are you seeing?
He's frozen. He's frozen.
Okay. So let's see if he comes back. That was really fun to remember. Ceasefire. Ceasefire is the Don Johnson movie that I saw when I first came to America. When I first came to Miami. And it was the writer. George Edward Fernandez was the writer, not the director. David Nutter was the writer. But George Edward Fernandez went on to have quite the career in Hollywood. And so did David Nutter, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
David Nutter's quite well known, I think.
Yes, he is. I know it's like when I saw his name, I'm like, oh, I know I've heard it before many times.
Wow, he directed 9 episodes of Game of Thrones. Hello. That's a pretty big show to be directing. He directed Lost in Space, the series, The Flash. So he's really in television now. And George Fernandez, I just reconnected with him on LinkedIn. We were chatting back and forth, and I was telling him about my memory of seeing Ceasefire with all the vets and at the cinema. So it looks as though we lost Robert entirely.
Yeah, I think it's a problem with this connection.
Yeah. Well, he had such a hard time getting on. I'm surprised we had him this long. So we may be calling it quits, I guess. But that was super fun. I always love these conversations because I just love finding out about filmmakers and what they're up to and what they're doing. And so yeah, it's interesting that Robert's in Canada, making films here and working with a variety of producers. Very, very interesting. And that whole thing about that paranormal thing. Laurie D, I know, is listening, but I actually thought of you, Laurie D, when he was telling his story about capturing the spirit in the box. I was like, that sounds like a movie that Laurie D could make. I think she can't speak, but I literally thought of Laurie D. I was like, oh, yeah, Laurie D could make that movie. Mark, go ahead.
So I just, this was really interesting because of the early part about talking about all the things that can go wrong reminded me about the first 4 or 5 projects I worked on where I learned that Murphy's Law was that if anything can go wrong, it will.
It will.
Now, he mentioned Diana Carter, but I did a search on IMDb and there's several Diana Carters. Do
I
you know?
posted it in the chat.
Oh,
And I
thank,
posted, yeah, and her LinkedIn. I posted both her IMDb and LinkedIn.
looks like Robert is connecting.
Oh, yep, looks like he's back.
Let's see. Is he there?
He's doing something.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, oh, thanks for putting in the LinkedIn as well, Emily. I was gonna, oh, there's Robert. I was gonna, Mark was asking about Diana Carter, but yeah, Mark, if you look a little higher up in the chat, Emily already put her.
Oh, there you are.
Great.
So Robert, we got you back
I'm back.
just in time to say goodbye. Mark, why don't you make your comment you were going to make about
Oh.
to Robert?
Robert, your stories about all the things that go wrong were reminding me about the first 5 film projects I worked on where I learned about Murphy's Law, that anything that will go wrong, can go wrong, will go wrong. That was the big takeaway for me. And I'm also thinking about, you were talking about, filmmakers who never actually finished the film. We had a project. We were right out of high school, and some attorneys gave us $45,000 to make a short film. And everybody worked on deferment. We worked on it like crazy. And then the guy who was supposed to do the editing on it just totally blew it. He kept taking money from the people that were funding us, and never finished editing the film.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. It happens way too often.
Yeah, the money isn't always the issue.
No.
You know, there are people with who have had the money who haven't finished their films. So it's
And
not
you get
all
people jumping ship. You know what I mean? They commit to do a job and then they start it and realize they're in over their head, and then they're gone. Now you're scrambling to get somebody else in. They're trying to, you know, like, hey, there's so many different things that can go wrong, and you really have to have the perseverance, and you have to have the determination that no matter what, we're putting this out there. We're getting it done. You really need that mindset when you're doing filmmaking like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think that anybody, what I see all the time with my clients who are making their first feature is that mostly, even though they're mentally prepared, they're never quite prepared for everything that's going to have to get done. You know, especially when you hit that post-production phase.
And
right.
I
Mark,
think people underestimate. They underestimate how much work is involved.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there's so much work to be done. And I find a lot of people they don't want to put in the work.
Yeah.
So they end up jumping ship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you so much, Robert, for coming.
Been a pleasure.
Everybody for listening in. What a pleasure to meet you, Robert. And
You as well.
I look forward to keeping up with more of your work, and maybe we'll add you to our mailing list if you don't mind, or you can add me to yours, whatever.
Absolutely.
What you're up to. I meant to actually talk to you more about marketing, because you obviously have really thought about marketing, and I didn't even get there. So
yep.
Next time.
Maybe I'll come back another day.
Yes. Oh, by the way, where in Canada are you?
I'm in Newfoundland, so we're a little island on the east coast of Canada. We're not separated to the mainland of Canada. We're just a little island.
What are some films or shows that have been shot in Newfoundland?
We just had Disney's Pan and Wendy shot here.
Oh,
So all that, like it kind of looks like Ireland. You know what I mean? So all those scenes, beautiful cliffs.
There was a series, Midnight Mass. That wasn't shot in Newfoundland, was it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one.
Oh,
I don't do a whole lot local. Most of my stuff's done in the States.
Right. But I just feel as if I've seen it in something recently. And
we did 3 Hallmark movies this year here in Newfoundland. Aquaman, the original Aquaman, some of that was shot here in Petty Harbor.
Wow, that's a cold place to do a water movie.
Yeah, they did it in the summer. In the summer, it's not bad.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Yeah, winter, like yesterday, no, day before yesterday, it was -30. So yeah.
I have friends who do water movies in the Bahamas, and it's cold.
Yeah, that's where you want to be, not here. But in the summer, it's okay. It's not the Bahamas still, but it's.
No. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And Midnight Mass was shot in British Columbia. Have you seen Midnight Mass, Lloyd?
I haven't.
Fantastic. That's my kind of show.
I love BC too. Oh,
Demons and religion and.
I was born in Alberta, spent a lot of time in BC. Oh my God, BC's beautiful.
Gosh, I've never been, but my ex-husband spent a vacation there. I was seeing all these pictures. I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic.
Check out Jasper, Alberta too. Oh my God, stunning.
Yes. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Emily. Thanks for all of your research.
Thank you.
I can't believe you got ceasefire before I put it in the chat. That was awesome. Bye-bye.